Dr. Horace Chang's tenure as Minister of National Security has been an abject failure, leaving Jamaicans feeling frightened, hopeless, and in despair. He clearly cannot bring the vision, energy, and vigor and communication skills which that portfolio requires. We are therefore calling on the Prime Minister to relieve him of his duties in that portfolio and give someone else an opportunity to bring a fresh and hopefully more effective approach.
Then let me also remind Dr. Chang that if Prime Minister Holness is not brave enough to reassign you, because I realize that he's afraid to make certain moves. So like Bobby Montague is the leader of the black section of the Labour Party. He doesn't really want to trouble him. If he doesn't want to trouble you because you're a General Secretary, I'm asking you, Minister Chang, to do the honorable thing and to resign from the post of Minister of National Security and allow somebody who has some vision and some testicular fortitude to come forth and do the job.
I asked Dr. Chang to take over the portfolio of national security before the last election. It is the most difficult portfolio in the country. It requires a long-term commitment to the plans that we have in place. We are not going to change the current situation through a flip of a switch. The problems are deep-rooted and they require significant structural, institutional, cultural, and resource reform. These take time, particularly the legislative, particularly the policy, and the structure. What you're seeing before you now is a police force that is far more intelligence-based than at any time ever. What you are seeing now is a direction of resources into our security apparatus that gives us domain control on land and at sea, to the point where if you believe you're going to enter Jamaica illegally and stay here, you have another thing coming. We have demonstrated the ability to now interdict boats with guns coming in from other jurisdictions, and we have demonstrated the capability to interdict fugitives from other jurisdictions. And you will see the increased capabilities to find weapons. And all of this is being done without taking any lives. This is the beginning of the transformation of our security forces into the security forces that can be compared to security forces worldwide of the highest standard. It will take time. It therefore means that I cannot, at this point, unduly interrupt the plans laid and the institutional knowledge that has been gained, which Minister Chang has been at the helm of at the Ministry of National Security. I have full confidence in Minister Chang, in his knowledge, in his competence, and in his heart, which is to ensure that every single Jamaican is safe.
A nation which seems to be constantly under threat by marauding gunmen and which has rampant and brazen criminality in several communities looks to this man to help craft effective policies to slay the crime beast. Now, however, National Security Minister Peter Bunting, in an emotional display, believes the lasting solution to deal with Jamaica's crime problem has to come from above. Clearly holding back tears, Mr. Bunting said this is a dark time in his career as minister.
I think after 15 months, I am convinced that the best efforts of the security forces by itself will not solve the crime problem in Jamaica. But it is going to take divine intervention, touching the heart of a wide cross-section of the society.
Mr. Bunting suggested help from the heavens is needed by way of the Almighty, touching the hearts of pastors, business persons and politicians who would then take appropriate action.
And using as the instruments of the divine intervention the ministers' fraternals, the academics, the business community, those persons who work in the NGO community, those of us who are in political service, all to try and make an impact.
Until then, however, the minister told the gathering that based on the numbers, it could be perceived that the crime beast is winning. His voice broke during the declaration. He tried hard to control his emotions.
I'm not embarrassed to say that right now, as Minister of National Security, I'm going through a kind of a dark night of the soul, because we're trying very hard at the ministry. I see the men and women of the security forces trying very hard, working night and day, long hours.
At one point, there was a pause by the minister. He needed a moment.
And
so what's keeping him going in light of the grim reality? The minister said he's clinging to faith.
And it really takes a lot of faith to keep working and going in the face of this. And of course, I'm happy that I have so many persons of faith to encourage and support not just myself, but all of the security forces at this time.
So a call for help from a higher power to help save the nation. Many hope the prayer will be answered.
An incensed Holness called Mr. Bunting rude, bright and out of order.
I don't just come and take figures, Giblet. I take my responsibility seriously. Now you better, as Minister of National Security, stop this nonsense of telling people about, well, it is all our responsibility and nationally we must join together. When I was leader of opposition of government business, I came to you, Mr. Bunting, from Central Manchester, and I sat with you when this nation had the greatest opportunity to bring crime under control. I came to you and I sat with you and I said to you, join us. We have criminals on the retreat. We were uprooting the criminal gangs, and I asked you, please join with us then to extend the state of emergency into St. Catherine, where we would have been able to deal with one of the most dangerous criminal gangs in Jamaica. And you, member from Central Manchester, refused. Had we done that, we would have uprooted the most dangerous criminal gang in Jamaica. And today, Jamaicans would have benefited from the safer country. But you played politics then, and you are trying to play politics now. I will not allow you to do it. Jamaica will not allow you to do it. Don't ever come in here and try to bring politics in this. Don't disrespect me. You're out of order.
Our constitutional arrangements, it does not matter whether you're a JLP or a PNP or what, any P. What matters is whether you support the government's principles and programs and will vote with the Prime Minister on matters. That's what makes you a government MP. Commissioner of Police, Anthony Anderson, is also hereby being put on warning. He is the main architect and promoter of the government's state of emergency strategy as an ongoing policing tool. No other commissioner of police before him has followed that unprecedented and what we regard as a dangerous path, abrogating the most basic and hard-won rights of Jamaicans in the name of ordinary policing. The constitutionality of his use of the states of emergency is in serious doubt.
We cannot and will not stand by and allow this sabotage of our country to continue. The Cabinet has accordingly advised the Governor General to act and proclaim a state of public emergency.
As I have already shown, there are other tools in the toolbox for him to use, and some others that the government needs to quickly deal with and address to provide him with, which should have been legislated for already. If the Commissioner cannot find another strategic approach to getting the crime problem under control within the next 60 days, I think he must call it a day as well and allow someone else to take up the mantle of Commissioner. Thank you.
I see the leadership, capable, competent, professional, both of the police and the military. And so much effort is being made, and yet so little headway, such slow headway is coming out in the statistics.
On Monday, the prosecution's witness in the One Don Klansman trial told the court that he and another gang member on trial, Carl Beach, would oftentimes attend meetings held by the People's National Party. The witness says a female strapped with a gun would always accompany them to these political meetings. Additionally, gang meetings would allegedly be held once Brian had an issue. The witness recalled a meeting when Blackman instructed him to browse the net for statistics on crime island-wide. At times, the witness says Clarendon and Montego Bay had more murders and shooting incidents than Spanish Town. He says Brian saw this as an issue, as he thought Spanish Town should be in the lead. The alleged leader would then have the group brainstorm to come up with a strategy to increase the number of shootings in Spanish Town.
Your party needs you now. It's time to step up and get busy and get wicked on them too. Right, you think this thing will come easy? You're fooling yourself. Nah, come easy, give right now, give up this so easy. And the first thing, the first step in the journey, comrades, is to win back local government in the next election. When we do that, Jamaica, as I said, the table turned. But look, when the little boy Montague, you know, Minister Scandal Macaulay, because everywhere he go, scandal follow him. And he talk about, yeah man, them love to see me in charge because they know so we can't win. Yeah man, go and talk them thing there. Go and run up about them way the minister scandal. Because me I go amongst the people, them and when me talk the people, them know so we real. And me know them heart, my heart is with them. And at them we come for serve. We don't come here so we scream. We don't come here so we make no money out of politics. We done make my money already. We are big liar in this country, big investment banker. And the whole of them know none but politics. We know business and law. We don't set it already for me and my family. We come here so now we help the people them. And I believe the country, I build the country, I build the economy. Jamaica great. That's the man. Take this thing serious. Make some sacrifice so that we come through this time. We have built something together, young people. We have built back the thing for the People's National Party, for Jamaica land we love. Make them come support the man in the Thompson Town Division. Make sure they win. Because we want that man to come mayor for the whole of Clarendon. We want back Clarendon. Not for you don't really know me, you know. Probably somebody has said me for the first time, I listened for the first time. We want to understand who he is. See? Because John will represent heart of the PNP. Yeah. I'm proud of them. And them give me strength. We don't feel that no guy in a parliament can't tell me nothing. I just 14 away in there. But the 40, come and tell them 49 of them. Enough of them now, nothing for say. Enough of them just dead like some empty barrel and peering knives. We're not afraid of them.
The use of prosperity as a political slogan has brought that word into disrepute. No wonder it seems to have been retired to the same place as you can sleep with your windows and doors open. Fantasy again.
The kind of crime that we are facing is not just random, arbitrary street level crime. There is intelligence behind criminality in Jamaica, meaning that there are criminals who sit down and plan and organize. This government is aware of that, and we would have seen that come out in testimony given in trials.
The witness recalled a meeting when Blackman instructed him to browse the net for statistics on crime island-wide. At times, the witness says Clarendon and Montego Bay had more murders and shooting incidents than Spanish Town. He says Brian saw this as an issue, as he thought Spanish Town should be in the lead. The alleged leader would then have the group brainstorm to come up with a strategy to increase the number of shootings in Spanish Town.
So let me make it clear to whichever intelligence is operating behind the criminality. Let me just make that absolutely clear. So if there is anyone who is deliberately trying to plan, coordinate, stoke, that will not work. So I just want to make that pellucidly clear that, you know, we're not going to allow criminals to dictate our security response.
You will well recall when the Prime Minister said that if you vote for the PNP, you may lose your life, and that if you vote for the Labour Party, you'll be able to leave your windows and doors open.
Are we fine cowering in fear in our homes, locked behind grille gates, or crouching under the bed to duck gunshots? Is it okay that law-abiding citizens are paralyzed by the fear of crime and violence, and that our murders continue to climb?
Can sleep with your windows and doors open. Fantasy again.
We said we have to put in stronger measures for guns. And there are those people in Jamaica who turn their mouth on it, as if to say we must allow the criminals to have the guns. I know that I have tried. It's a minefield. Because every turn you make, there is someone who is trying to stop it, and I have to wonder, are they in support of the criminals in the country?
The Prime Minister says stronger efforts will be made to prevent the importation of illegal weapons.
We are increasing our capacity to have domain control of our territorial waters. People wonder why we're spending all of this money. Because we have to stop the guns coming in. That's why we're putting the boats out there. And we're going to put more out there so we can control our territorial waters. Talk about crime plan. It's the first time Jamaica has a plan that is being executed. And not just talk, money behind it.
I hear quite often people ask, what is it that the opposition is doing to deal with crime and violence in the country? Firstly, we have one government at a time. The People's National Party is not the government. Yes, we have some responsibilities in the governance, but we are not the government. We don't have the authority to institute policies and programs of the government.
Chairman of the People's National Party, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, is resolute on the views expressed by the opposition regarding the government's approach to the use of states of public emergency.
I think the PNP's position was very, very clear in terms of the state of emergency, that we didn't think it was for routine use. We thought that how it was being used was unconstitutional, and we also thought it did not work.
We cannot and will not stand by and allow this sabotage of our country to continue. The Cabinet has accordingly advised the Governor-General to act and proclaim a state of public emergency.
Not contentious in my mind alone. It is contentious in many minds on our side. And the whole question of whether somebody supports the Prime Minister and will vote with the government side or not is a real issue. And under our constitutional arrangements, it does not matter whether you're a JLP or a PNP or what, any P. What matters is whether you support the government's principles and programs and will vote with the Prime Minister on matters. That's what makes you a government MP.
The vote, as recorded by the clerk, is as follows. 13 ayes, 3 noes, and 5 abstentions. I'm sorry, 5 absences. Of course, that's something completely different. So that the resolutions put before this Honorable Senate, the emergency powers continuous resolution for the parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, and the emergency powers specified areas of Kingston and St. Andrew continuous resolution is not approved.
It's a sad day for the people of Jamaica, and in particular it is a sad day for the people who live in the communities covered by the 7 divisions of the state of public emergency. We convey our apologies to the security forces who recommended and who have been utilizing the space and who had hope that the debate today would rise to the level of reason and regard for the professional advice given and the realities on the ground. But it is what it is. We have reached where we are, and I only regret that as leader of government business, that the Senate has not delivered a better result to the people of Jamaica today.
Leader of government business, and I address the members of the Senate, and in fact, as the President of the Senate, in whom a degree of responsibility has been vested, I do not, of course, participate in the debate. It does not, however, mean that I cannot voice a view and call the attention of the people of Jamaica from every quarter, from the university, from the communities, various communities across Jamaica, from the Bar Association, members of the legal fraternity. I wish to bring to your attention, all of Jamaica, the need to revisit a provision which allows for 2 members of the lower house, Member Golden and Member Cousins, 2 members of the lower house, neither of whom come from the parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, or Hanover, which is the epicenter of the problem that we face today. So 2 members of the lower house voted against these resolutions. 2. Senator Samuda, would you allow me? 2 members of the lower house voted against the state of emergency, and as a consequence of a particular provision in our Constitution, the matter came to the Senate and required 1 vote. In the upshot, 3 unelected members of this House have voted against this resolution. No account has been taken of the elected representatives from Hanover, St. James, and Westmoreland, all of whom supported the state of emergency. Where is that an expression of democracy? 3 unelected, 3, not even 8 of them, 3 unelected members of this Senate have put the security of this nation on a knife's edge. So I ask every member of this country, every citizen of this country, and those who reside beyond our shores, you tell me, there are 63 members of parliament. 2 of them, neither of whom, I think 1 of them represents an area under the state of emergency. 2 2 members of the lower house voted against this resolution. 2! And 3 unelected members. Senator Crawford, who is the only one who has remained here, Senator Bunting, and Senator Morris. None of them who have anything to do with the parishes and the divisions where crime is making our citizens' life a nightmare. So, the clerk is looking at me and telling me perhaps not to say it. But let me tell you something. This country needs to revisit this provision because it flies in the face of everything that is sensible. And for those of you who don't know why this provision is here and why it is Senator Brown and Senator Bunting continue to call the name of the Right Honorable Edward Seaga, that provision was put here because of the illegal, corrupt 1976 state of emergency.
We cannot and will not stand by and allow this sabotage of our country to continue. The Cabinet has accordingly advised the Governor General to act and proclaim a state of public emergency.
Now I am calling, Tom Tavares Finson, the President of the Senate. I'm calling on the head of the churches, I'm calling on civic organizations, I'm calling on the business community, the PSOJ. I'm calling on every sensible Jamaican to look at what has happened to here today and listen to me as I finally say. 2 members of parliament, not the entire opposition caucus, 2 and 3 unelected members of this Senate have put this country in grave danger.
The One Don Klansman trial continued in the Home Circuit Court today, with the prosecution's second witness detailing the inner workings of the gang. The witness told the court about gang meetings involving top-tier members, as well as private meetings that were related to contractual killings. The court also learned that members of the gang attended political meetings. Our senior reporter Robin Williams was in court and files this report.
On Monday, the prosecution's witness in the One Don Klansman trial told the court that he and another gang member on trial, Carl Beach, would oftentimes attend meetings held by the People's National Party. The witness says a female strapped with a gun would always accompany them to these political meetings. Meanwhile, the witness revealed that the reputed gang leader Andre Blackman Bryan showed him the gun he used to kill former chairman of the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, Douglas Chambers, while bragging that he put 2 big holes in his head. That gun, the witness claimed, had to be sold because Bryan did not want it to remain in the parish of St. Catherine. Chambers was shot dead in 2008 by gunmen in Spanish Town. According to the witness, Chambers was disrupting the collection of extortion money. Bryan was charged for the murder but was found not guilty in 2016. In 2019, reputed leader of the Klansman gang, Tesha Miller, was convicted in connection to the murder. Additionally, gang meetings would allegedly be held once Bryan had an issue. The witness recalled a meeting when Blackman instructed him to browse the net for statistics on crime island-wide. At times, the witness says Clarendon and Montego Bay had more murders and shooting incidents than Spanish Town. He says Bryan saw this as an issue, as he thought Spanish Town should be in the lead. The alleged leader would then have the group brainstorm to come up with a strategy to increase the number of shootings in Spanish Town. The witness detailed how 3 of the defendants stabbed a man to death and buried him after. He further gave evidence against another defendant, claiming he wanted to drink blood from the skull of a man who was already buried.
Your party needs you now. It's time to step up and get busy and get wicked by next door. But if you think this thing gonna come easy, you're fooling yourself. Nah, come easy, baby, right? Nah, give up this so easy. And the first thing, the first step in the journey, comrades, is to win back local government in the next election.
There was tension in Parliament this afternoon as the government sought to extend the states of emergency until February 12 next year. An opposition member made a comment about the police commissioner, which the Speaker of the House asked him to withdraw, but he refused. Vashon Brown tells us more.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang brought the resolution for the 3-month extension of the states of emergency to the House of Representatives this afternoon. They were imposed on November 14 in 7 police divisions. The government insists the SOEs are effective, but the opposition continues to make the point that the detention aspect of the law is problematic.
And the danger with the state of emergencies, it provides for, in some instances, malice to determine if somebody is arrested and detained for an extended period of time without charge, without the right to due process.
The opposition MP also made this comment during his contribution to the debate.
If we continue to have, and every time we have a vacancy in where the post of the Commissioner of Police is concerned, we continue to use military officers, we're going to get military opinions in terms of the way of fighting crime. That is the only solution you can get from a military officer, is to use a soldier and to take parry people's rights and throw them in a cell. If the Commissioner of Police is not performing his functions, he should be relieved of his duties. And you get somebody that is competent to guide you and advise you.
That comment did not go down well with the government members.
And it's bringing the office of the Commissioner of Police into disrepute, Madam Speaker, in a critical...
Madam Speaker, you need to sit. What is really happening in this house?
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. In such a time when we are fighting crime, you get upon about your origin and where the Commissioner of Police come from. And you are a disgrace.
House Speaker Marissa Dalrymple-Philibert gave her ruling.
In this climate, I am going to ask the member to withdraw the comment about the Commissioner of Police, one, and I'm going to ask for it to be expunged from the records.
Madam Speaker, what specific comment are you... Madam Speaker, with all due respect. Due respect, Madam Speaker. What is this? And with all due respect, Madam Speaker, I do not see anything to withdraw in respect of what I said earlier. And I remain resolute in that stance.
Lothan Cousins insisted that as an MP, he's entitled to provide opinions in the Parliament.
I'm going to ask you, therefore, if you refuse to observe, then you can discontinue your speech and remain where you are now, as you are sitting.
Madam, I have said enough, Madam Speaker. Therefore, I'll say no more, and I am sure my colleagues will complete my statement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member is new. The member is having his first term. And I think that he should be guided. And whilst the Speaker has ruled and he has refused to respond to the ruling of the Speaker and consequently accepted the punishment for so doing.
And the debate on the resolution to extend the SOE is continuing in Parliament at this hour, with the government members now responding to concerns raised by the opposition. While the government can easily get the measure passed in the House of Representatives, where it has the overwhelming majority, it will need opposition support in the Senate if it is to secure the required 2/3 of votes.
A heated debate that left members of the opposition livid, a few walking out of Parliament during the first segment of the meeting. After hours of a lengthy debate to gain at least one vote, the opposition remained steadfast in their decision to not support the extension of the states of public emergency. 13 government senators voted for the extension, while the 8 in opposition voted against. The government on Tuesday used its majority in the lower house to pass the extension. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, called for the support of the opposition As she says, the SOE saves lives.
I'm asking for one vote. I'm asking for the ability of our security forces to use the constitutional powers granted to them by the Governor General's proclamation.
The Foreign Affairs and Trade Minister also addressed claims around the constitutionality of the SOE. Meanwhile, leader of opposition business in the Senate, Peter Bunting, says last year there was an ongoing state of emergency, which reflected an increase in murder.
We don't believe that this is acceptable. The position that we have taken, that the way the government is using the state of emergency, the circumstances don't exist for the declaration, and then at the time of extension, the circumstances still don't exist. Our position has been supported by the two judgments of the court thus far.
The current SOEs were declared across several parishes for 14 days on November 15. Nicola. The House of Representatives approved the extension of the states of public emergency during a lengthy sitting of Parliament on Tuesday. Following a robust debate, 44 government members voted for the extension, while 3 opposition members present voted against. The conclusion came after Prime Minister Andrew Holness extends support for the extension of the SOE beyond November 28 to opposition leader Mark Golding.
But the law as it is structured requires the support of the opposition. And I stand here asking the leader of the opposition to support the extension of the state of public emergency.
While urging members of the opposition to consider the extension, he disclosed it will continue into 2023.
Madam Speaker, it is in this context that I am bringing the Emergency Powers Continuance Resolution to this Honourable House to have the states of public emergency and the emergency powers regulations remain in force until January 14, 2023.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Mark Golding questions the role of the SOE, dubbing the extension as an animated act. He says crime is likened to a public health issue and should not be treated as unconstitutional.
It is, in my view, highly inappropriate and a disregard for the cardinal constitutional principle of respecting the separation of powers among the 3 branches of the state, the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, for the government to be continuing to use the SOE procedure in this way.
The resolution will now move to the Senate, where at least 1 opposition senator will be required to vote in support of its extension to secure a 2/3 majority. Nicola Brown, CVM Live.
As the criticism of the opposition's approach to crime fighting continues by members of the governing JLP, Legal Affairs Minister Marlene Malahoo Fort concludes the PNP have emboldened criminals.
The Bunting Golding-led PNP opposition have emboldened criminals to the point where they know their rights more than their wrongs.
The 2 major political parties have been at loggerheads since the attempt to extend the 14-day states of public emergency fell flat with no opposition support. The St. James West Central Member of Parliament went on to explain her pointed view.
We are lawmakers first as members of Parliament, and we've been trying to get a common view across the aisles on matters that our view of the Constitution tells us can be done. And we made a proposal in keeping with express provisions of the Constitution. Section 14, 1F, 1 and 2. That deals with arrest and detention in respect of persons who are suspected of committing crimes, and also the preventive detention side, where it's reasonably necessary to detain or arrest for the purpose of preventing crime. And here we are today.
The minister insists the PNP has made unfair allegations regarding the actions of the security forces under the special crime fighting measure, adding the party's view on policing is outdated.
The view that the opposition has about the state of affairs in Jamaica is outdated. The views about policing in Jamaica is outdated. And every time I hear an allegation of human rights abuse, the allegation is actually being levied at the security forces who are executing on the ground. And it is wrong, because the police have come a long way in their training and in discharging their duties.
The opposition in Parliament insists the SOE must not be the first resort for the government to curb crime, while again demanding a full crime plan.
I really believe, though, that the politics needs to be taken out of it, and we need a serious crime plan, and we need to see from the government a serious attitude towards collaborating around what makes sense.
Dr. Brown-Burke also alluded to the suggestions that were made by opposition leader Mark Golding regarding a crime plan. However, when asked what the PNP's crime plan would look like, the chairman had this to say.
Well, we're not government, so we can't have a crime plan, you know.
The states of public emergency that expired 1 week ago have been reimposed. Another set of states of public emergency has been announced across the island. This time, St. Anne and the St. Andrews Central Police Division have been included. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement a short while ago.
One in the entire parish of St. Anne, Clarendon, St. Catherine, and specified areas in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew. The other is in the entire parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, and Hanover.
Justifying the need for the enhanced security measures, the Prime Minister says the last declaration saw a reduction in major crimes in the areas where they had been implemented. He says security officials have been concerned about the measures ended midnight on December 12.
Unfortunately, an increase in criminal activities in these areas, and indeed a threat to property and in some instances public disorder.
The new SOEs will expire midnight on December 20. In the meantime, Prime Minister Andrew Holness did not mince words against critics of the government's intent in the fight against crime. O'Shane Masters reports.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the need for the imposition of the states of public emergency is justified. His comment follows criticisms from the opposition and other groups within society which have bashed the government for using the measure as a crime-fighting mechanism. Speaking at a press briefing Tuesday morning, Mr. Holness said those individuals are living in a, quote, dream world, end quote. Now, he says, based on evidence, the country is under threat from organized criminal elements.
The people who complain about the SOEs are not the people who benefit from them in the communities where they have to hide under their beds, hide their daughters, can't go to church, and they see their sons and their boyfriends and husbands killed. That's a reality. The government is trying to build up our capacity.
The Prime Minister also had this word.
But there are those who are entrenched in the system for only political reasons, who parade as if they are independent, but they are political activists trying to obfuscate, confuse. For what purpose? To save your life? No, to gain power.
The opposition People's National Party was not spared from the attack of the Prime Minister.
But I wish to use this platform today to make it absolutely clear that those who take comfort that the opposition will continue to derail the government's attempt to save lives and reduce violence, that there is no such comfort to be had, because the government will be relentless on all fronts to combat your criminal and violent intent.
In the meantime, Mr. Holness says he will be traveling to Washington later today to further deepen relationships in a bid to reduce transnational crime. According to Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson, some 30 individuals are on a targeted list of suspects.
They can't feel that they are free to influence, direct, solicit, and finance crime in Jamaica. So I head to Washington to have meetings with the Justice Department, the FBI, and other entities there, because I am serious. If you are overseas and you are sponsoring, directing, soliciting, or financing crime in Jamaica, we're going to get you.
Fellow Jamaicans, the Prime Minister this morning announced the declaration of another round of states of emergency as we roll into the festive Christmas season. There was no consultation with the opposition prior to this decision being made. No briefing as to the specific security issues which are being relied on as justification for another round of SOEs. This clearly shows once again that the government has no regard for the opposition. Mr. Holness prefers to be wrong and strong, pressing on with his SOE policy. His behavior indicates that he really does not want our support, no doubt believing that it is to his political advantage for the opposition and the government to be continuing at odds over this issue. We do not see the use of states of emergency as a policing tool as being a sustainable path forward for Jamaica. Putting the majority of Jamaicans at legal risk of being detained for extended periods by police or soldiers without charge is no way to address Jamaica's long-standing, challenging problem of criminal violence.
Dr. Brown-Burke also alluded to the suggestions that were made by opposition leader Mark Golding regarding a crime plan. However, when asked what the PNP's crime plan would look like, the chairman had this to say.
Well, we're not government, so we can't have a crime plan, you know.